but he has insisted he will attend. That's what I'm talking about. That you say Moses Kuria is not going to attend. You say others can attend. Limuru is the worst thing that can happen because we are going there naked and we are going to expose our nakedness. We did not build consensus around Raila. So those of us who campaigned for him found ourselves alone, wasting our money, wasting our time and our resources because there was no consensus that was built around him. Upon coming to office, and this is now on record, Uhuru dismantled all the structures that put him to power. And he became a very, very typical monarch who assumed the role of deciding for the community. And that was the 2022 rebellion.
A very good day to you and welcome to Herman Manyora's YouTube channel. My name is Jadiel Kabiro. It's always a joy, it's always a pleasure, it's always a privilege to have you joining us here for conversations we say, we hope will help in building this country both politically and in policy decisions. I'm with a guest today, Professor Peter Kagwanja, who is a lecturer of policy, a lecturer of international relations and diplomacy. He's also the president of Africa Policy Institute, also advisor to government. Some say he's part of deep state. He'll tell me a little bit about that, what he does for this country, what he has been doing. Our conversation is about Limuru 3, the significance of this meeting that is happening in Mount Kenya. Ruto versus Uhuru again. Is that the question we are having? Are we charting the way forward? And is this meeting significant? Professor Peter, thank you for making time for me. How are you doing this particular day?
I'm very well, thank you. Muranga has stopped raining.
Yeah?
Muranga is no longer raining.
Yes.
So it's good.
Thank you. Thank you for coming through. I want to talk about this Limuru 3, but before we talk about this meeting that is happening, tell me first, why Limuru? And what is the background that comes before these meetings? Because people are asking, why do these meetings happen? And are they any significant? I believe that you have been part of forming some of these meetings that have been happening in Limuru.
The term Limuru is almost a synonym for deep politics in Mount Kenya. It is basically the place where major decisions about the past and future of power are made. I'll go back very quickly. In 1961, James Gichuru, Thomas Joseph Boya, Ogiga Odinga, and others who were in one alliance met first at Limuru and decided we are going to transform Kau into Kano. And we chose our leader as Jomo Kenyatta, who was already in detention at that time. And Gichuru agreed that when Kenyatta comes, I'm going to step down for him. And then we are one political formation. That is how the nationalist politics of this country were formed in Limuru. And you recall in 1966, there were serious squabbles within the ruling formation. Tom Mboya and Jomo Kenyatta on the one side, together with Mwai Kibaki. And then we had Jaramogi Oginga and a whole range of other politicians like Kega, who were on the other. And the question was whether Kenya should be socialist or should be capitalist. They disagreed. And therefore the Limuru conference was called. And it is the Limuru conference and the squabbles that came from there that gave birth to Daniel Moi as the second president of the Republic of Kenya.
Oh, really?
Yes, because Jaramogi resigned after that Limuru, and he decided that he would form his own opposition, and that gave space to Moi to be named the successor to Kenyatta. So Moi was actually born out of Limuru.
Okay.
Now, so the Limuru has always signified deep politics, what they call the night of the long knives, when power changes hands and when alliances are formed and alliances change the dynamics of politics. But Limuru is about the national question. It is not always about the ethnic question.
Because that is the question with
Yes,
Kenyans.
yes.
Is it just Mount Kenya?
No, Limuru cannot be about the ethnic question. It is about the national question. But it's also about a community that has been at the heart of politics in Kenya. Therefore, as advisor to President Mwai Kibaki, or particularly on governance issues in the 21st century, I found myself in a very difficult situation because I was the CEO of the constitutional making process, the campaign process, what we were calling the government secretariat. And as a CEO, with everybody looking up to me, and we had already lost another referendum in 2005, November. It was a very, very difficult position for me. And I had to make very hard decisions. And I decided to take the country back to Limuru.
Limuru 2?
Limuru 1.
Limuru 1.
Yes, because that was about the constitution. That was in May 2010, before the August referendum. And the question was, the constitution was losing in Mount Kenya. And the president, Mwai Kibaki, supported the constitution to the hilt. And he was in partnership with Raila Odinga. And in this other side, we find everybody on the Mount Kenya side, the leadership particularly from Michuki to others, I would not mention names here, they were all inclined to the no direction. Of course, President Ruto was already in the no. The others, that's where the concept of the watermelon came up.
Yeah.
Because during the day, you are green, because you want to be loyal to the president. But at night, you're very red. So that's how we coined the concept of watermelon, because the watermelon was just about to spoil a constitutional moment.
Okay.
And therefore, I decided the way to deal with the problem is to expose it in public. And we did perhaps one of the most intensive fundraising process I've ever done, because we did not want to be accused of being a government project. So we went to well-wishers, and they supported the Limuru process heavily. Therefore, we were able to bring every leader from Mount Kenya constituencies, from Meru, Tharaka-Nithi, Embu, Muranga, Kirinyaga, Nyandarua, Laikipia, every part of Mount Kenya came to Limuru. We came to Limuru because that is the place we make our hard decisions about our future. And we say that we are going to Limuru not as yes or no, not as friends and enemies or enemies. We are going as a community. So I remember we used the example of Mheshimiwa Mwite that time. He had just lost the election to Guyai. And that was really what symbolized in Kikuyu country around that time, the most intense battles for politics. Then I said, I'm going to invite Mwite, I will invite Guyai, and they will sit to where the Limuru people are sitting. I mean, the Kikuyu people are sitting. So in Limuru, we brought everybody, enemies and friends. They were there. We brought, that time, the big question was whether Maina Jenga and others should come, because they had already been put a tag. I said, they are coming.
For their interest?
Yes. And I said, the topmost Kraje, Peter Jenga, and others are also coming. The best amongst us and the worst amongst us. The angels and saints are going to be in this Limuru because this is a collective decision. By the time we left there, the region had resolved that we are going to support this constitution. 2, we will be behind Kibaki. 3, Kibaki should now come out of State House and go and fight for this constitution. And 4, that Uhuru Kenyatta is going to be the voice that is going to speak for us in the region.
He was then
and with that,
Deputy Prime Minister.
He was Deputy Prime Minister. And with that, our political alignment was very clear. It is Kibaki, Uhuru, and the others. Of course, there were fallouts. People like Peter Kenneth, Mother Karua, and others fell out of this because they did not agree with the formula. But the community had decided, and the die was cast. So we went into the constitution, and you can see the constitution gains almost 70%. The single event that got the highest vote since this Republic of Kenya was born.
Just because of that Limuru meeting?
Yes, just because of the Limuru meeting and the consensus that moved there. We call that a big tent strategy. A big tent strategy is where everybody fits in. The Muite and the Guyais, the minor Jengas and the saint and the priests, everybody fits into the picture. All elders, big politicians, top politicians, and MCAs. That time we were calling them councillors. We all fitted into the tent, so, and we decided our future collectively.
So why are we here today with Limuru 3? Has there been any attempt in having another meeting? Because we're looking at, they're saying they're charting the way for Mount Kenya region, saying Mount Kenya is divided, saying that the economy is not doing well. Has there been any attempt to unite the region, as you say, for power and prosperity? Now,
between Limuru 1 and what we now call Limuru 2, very seismic, decisive developments came up. The region had decided that Uhuru would be our voice. We had not decided on whether he was going to be the national leader or not at that level. Remember, at this level, we are having a president who is a Mount Kenya president in office. And therefore, it would have sounded very selfish for us to say we want to have another, Mount Kenya as president, particularly after the 2008 violence. That would have been very naive. So we opted to just have Uhuru as our voice and our leader in the region. But between 2010 and 2011, 2012, something came that changed our lives dramatically. That is the ICC, the International Criminal Court ruling. It indicted President Kenyatta, former President Kenyatta, indicted William Ruto and others, including the head of the cabinet at that time, Francis Mudavadi. So for Mount Kenya, maybe other Kenyans did not see it. That was deeply traumatic. It was a life and death struggle. Whatever happens, this is it. We either live or we perish. And that is the background against which we called the Limuru 2. And the Limuru 2 was to make very hard decisions. We have a constitution, we have Kibaki going home, and the constitution does not prevent anybody from standing. And I said the Limuru process is about alliance building. It's about building alliances. Let nobody cheat you. It's about building alliances. So as we were going to Limuru, we had already formed the alliances with other groups. Alliances were forming. And at that decision, at that Limuru conference too, which was the hardest, a lot of things were happening. The region was deeply divided over the ICC question. We made two decisions, very key. One, Uhuru will be a candidate, presidential candidate. That was really holding the bull by the horns, because the equation had not changed. We have a Kikuyu president in office, and we have a candidate who is already indicted by international courts. So, and already Johnny Carson and others are threatening us internationally that choices have consequences. So we stood that afternoon and said Uhuru will be a candidate. Two, that even when Uhuru is a candidate, he is not going to go alone. He will go with Ruto because their destiny is joined at the hip.
By the ICC?
By the ICC. The destiny was joined at the hip. And because of the rift, and because of that, the Rift Valley and Mount Kenya are one, because we were facing the same threat. We elevated the debate to the national level, that this is not a threat to regions. This is not a threat to communities. It is a threat to the nation. Limuru has always been about the national question. Even when you are talking ethnic unity or regional unity, you are talking about regional unity in order to stabilize national politics. So the decision had already been made. That is the lineup. Of course, that is what produced CORD. at that time,
Yes.
as a resistance to this decision. And then we decided, so be it. ICC is a referendum issue. So from a legal case somewhere in far land countries, lands called The Hague,
Yes.
at home, it was a referendum question.
When did things fall apart? Because you were joined together by the hip, the Kikuyu and the Kalenjin, Rift Valley, Mount Kenya. And then you look at President Uhuru Kenyatta coming out supporting Azimio leader Raila Odinga. For Mount Kenya, supporting Ruto, saying, we promised this man the presidency. Uhuru is deciding to go that way. We are going to support Ruto once again. When did things change? Was there another meeting convened?
No. I would be very brief on this, because if I tell you what am I going to write about my autobiography or anything, I'll simply this.
You won't spill the beans.
I'll simply say this.
Yes.
Upon coming to office, and this is now on record, Uhuru dismantled all the structures that put him to power. And he became a very, very typical monarch who assumed the role of deciding for the community. And that was the 2022 rebellion. Ruto did not win, Uhuru lost. Because he had not understood the psychology of our people. Our people make decisions collectively, and that is what Limuru represents. And those of us who have been in national politics, coming from Mount Kenya, had already conceived Limuru 3. It was already in our long-term plan as part of our shaping the future. And we started pushing to the Uhuru government through the office of his advisor that we need now to convene Limuru 3. We started that in 2020 because we need a heir to Uhuru.
The intention was successing Uhuru.
Yes, because the constitution was very clear. Uhuru has to go after 10 years. Now, we need a successor to Uhuru in the region, so that when we are discussing with other communities about how to run this collective identity and entity we call Kenya, we have a person who is coalescing us around a common opinion. The person who will help us to form the consensus. Just like the way Kibaki was there, he is going, but he allowed us to discuss about our future. And that's how we arrived at very difficult circumstances. You can put yourself in Kibaki's shoes. Hearing rambles in the jungle about people who are going to elect a person who has been indicted by the ICC, and he is the president. Electing a person who is a Kikuyu to succeed him, and he's a Kikuyu. He must also be having an opinion, but he had to keep quiet because it is not upon him
to trust the system.
No, it's not upon him to decide our destiny and how our future is going to be. So the problem was Uhuru decided to decide the destiny for us and to be actively involved in shaping our future. And the people rebelled.
But some say it was high time.
And they swept us out of office.
Some believe it was high time Uhuru supported someone from the Luo nation, which is Raila Odinga, for the sake of unifying the country. This was also the case with the Building Bridges initiative. Don't you think somehow, maybe he was right in saying, let me support Raila without the region's backing?
No, but we could have done the same in Limuru. We could have built the same consensus in Limuru about Raila. Nobody ever invited Raila to his Dingira, where we talked deep politics. Okay? Nobody ever did that. Many people invited Ruto to their corners, those who were close to William Ruto. And Ruto became part of the community. Remember when the Kalenjin invited Raila to their community and even gave him name Arap Mibei, they were basically making him part of the consensus of the region. We did not build consensus around Raila. So those of us who campaigned for him found ourselves alone, wasting our money, wasting our time and our resources, because there was no consensus that was built around him.
It all came from Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yeah, and you have the machinery of the state, and you think you can govern people through the machinery of the state. Machinery of the states don't govern. It's the consensus of the people that govern. And it's the consensus of the people that moved Uhuru from the fifth in the line of succession to the successor, to the Kibaki. Because if you recall, there was Raila Odinga, who was the incumbent as the co-principal with Mwai Kibaki. There was Kalonzo Musyoka as vice president. There was George Saitoti as former vice president, and then Minister Interior and acting Minister for Foreign Affairs, and a very powerful personality and intellectual. There was Musalia Mudavadi as equal to Uhuru as co-deputy, but a notch higher because he was a former vice president. And now there is Uhuru in the tail here as Minister for Finance and Deputy Prime Minister. He was number 5. But the consensus of the people moved from number 5 to number 1. That's how powerful that consensus, that's how powerful Limuru is. Therefore, we thought and pushed for Limuru 3. We pushed for Limuru 3 to decide the destiny of the region after Uhuru. But then we were cut short because there was the state process and there was now the consensus building process in the region. And the consensus building process was defeated. What happened? We rebelled, we became angry. And most of us, look at all the leaders you call William Ruto's followers. William Ruto's followers were basically foot soldiers for Uhuru Kenyatta. Didi Kangata, all these were foot soldiers for Uhuru. So I don't see in Mount Kenya anything other than the rebellion against Uhuru. So, and Ruto rode to power on the back of that rebellion. So you say he did not win, Uhuru lost? Yes, because there was a rebellion. And this is where you can, if you don't understand the tide, then you can interpret different things that don't fit in. So Limuru 3 never occurred. It was supposed, the best of my my memory, it was supposed to take place in March 2022, just ahead of the election. Just like Limuru 2 took place just a few months to the election, so that you make a good decision and then you have time to put things in order. It never occurred, and because of that, something emerged. Take it or leave it. William Ruto won the election, fair and square. And after winning the election, he became the kingpin of Mount Kenya region. We have to live with that reality. The issue of Uhuru succession is way behind us. Now it is about the Ruto succession. And it comes when we have a vacuum in our region, when people are divided into multiple alliances. The two formations, the government and the opposition political formations, are themselves internally divided. We have Didi Nyoro here, we have Gachagua there, we have Moses Kuria in the middle, and others. On this other side, we have Mother Karua, we have Kioni, who is supposed to be, there is a hidden hand allegedly behind him, and there are others, Peter Kenneth, Peter Kagwanja, Peter, I don't know who else, Peter. There are many in that line. So, in that matrix, going to the Limuru 3 without putting our house in order, where we are not going to make any resolute decisions on anything, and where we are not inclusive, that is not going to produce a consensus. So you think, if I may ask, would there be an impact in Limuru 3 happening on May 17th? Will there be any impact without these leaders that you've just talked about meeting first and agreeing on having this conversation about Mount Kenya? Do you think there will be any impact? You can go to church for 2 reasons. To clean it in the preparation for the Mass, or you can go to the church for a Mass. They are going to clean the church for a Mass because there's nothing specific they are going to say there or do there. Read my lips. No resolution is going to come from there. The Limuru 3 is going to divide Mount Kenya deeper and deeper. It is going to make our situation worse, and we're going to emerge from that process more divided than ever before. I see that as a very selfish thing. First, build consensus at the local level. Take us to Limuru when we are going to make declarations that other Kenyans are going to see and live with.
But how do you build this consensus when everyone seems to be fighting themselves, when Mount Kenya seems to be so divided, Kenya Kwanza especially? Look at Ndindi Nyoro, look at Moses Kuria, look at Rigathi Gachagua. How do you build this consensus?
But they should have built the consensus among themselves. Because yes, Uhuru left us a vacuum. But Uhuru is now 3 years gone. What have we done as leaders in Mount Kenya to put our house in order? Now, Ruto doesn't need to tell us where to go as a region. He doesn't have that power at all, because he cannot govern our homes. But we cannot blame him if our people look to him, because there's no other leader. This is a very paradoxical issue where the sheep have no shepherd. And they have to look for a shepherd, because there is none.
So you're saying President Ruto is the kingpin of Mount Kenya region?
Yes.
Despite the backlash we're getting, you carry officials getting kicked out because of economical issues.
I mean, Kibaki had his own difficulties with his own people. Jomo Kenyatta had his own difficulties with his own people. But he was the kingpin. So as far as I'm concerned, if you're talking about a people's consensus, remember I started off Limuru as symbolic of our consensus in the region. If we're really talking about consensus, the 2022 consensus was that Ruto is our leader. And the people are ready to experiment with having a kingpin who is not from their region. I spoke to them. I was a candidate I was a political competitor in 2022. And I listened to people saying, and I'm telling them, well, we have Uhuru here. Uhuru has decided that we elect Raila Odinga. I think he's a very seasoned person. I said, listen, for us, we are not listening there. Actually, a person from outside your region can be better, can serve you better than one from our region. That was the argument across the region. And therefore, it is basically writing history or working with your head to assume that Ruto is not the kingpin of the region up to 2027. But what happens on the 10th of August 2027 is something else. What happened on the 10th? The consensus that is going to emerge between now and then is not going to be shaped by what happened in 2022. It is going to be shaped by the experiences of the people from that time to now. And I think that would be a debate for another day. For now, Limuru is the worst thing that can happen, because we are going there naked, and we are going to expose our nakedness to the publics of Kenya. And that way the region is going to come out as a very divided, chaotic region. And we're not going to get to send the right signals about the future of the country.
What do you think the organizers of this Limuru 3 hope to achieve? Because you say there is no consensus. Yes, they are talking about the interest of the region. You're saying there probably is a hidden hand behind Jeremiah Kioni. What do you think they hope to achieve when you meet without consensus?
No, they don't. Hoping is not a scientific word. Anybody can hope, even a criminal on the hanging, row. I mean, you are on the queue to be hanged.
Yeah.
You still have hope. It's not about hope. It's about a thinking nation. It's about a thinking region. What is in their mind when they are going to Limuru? And I think that's a question that we should be asking. What is in our mind about the future of the region, and what is in our mind about the future of the nation? Because we are not alone in this country. We are among other 44 plus communities, depending on who is counting. So in this case, I think it is significant. Signifies the folly of our politics, the tragic end of the Uhuru period and the aftermath. of that tragic end of the Uhuru era, where a community emerges without a leader who would call people to order. And that's why we are having all these people moving from east to west with the choppers, doing some kiddish things, and basically embarrassing a community that think very highly of itself, that has achieved a lot in economic, political, and intellectual terms. And here we are, a laughing stock for the others.
Then if you are the leader that you crowned kingpin in the Limuru to President Uhuru Kenyatta, and you're looking at this situation where Ruto has taken over kingpinship without consensus, how would you...
With consensus.
With consensus from people?
People formed consensus.
Without a meeting, without a proper meeting?
Yes, because it was a rebellion. And it was a universal rebellion. Go to Muranga today. Before August 2022, all the seats belonged to Jubilee. From MCA to the governor around that time. Today, Jubilee had not a single seat, even an MCA. In fact, it's PNU, which has a seat in Makuyu, in my county of Muranga. The whole county, what do you call that? Total rebellion. Even Peter Kenneth's home, Gatanga, even in Keruara village, there is no MCA who comes from Jubilee. As it's called, yellow fever was total in Muranga. If it was exterminating people, we are all gone.
Do you think the president now, President Uhuru Kenyatta, do you think he has a voice in the region? Is there a way he can bring this region together for the sake of...
Allow me not to talk about Uhuru today. Let me talk about Limuru.
Talk to me then about Rigathi Gachagua, who says he's the senior most political leader. Does he also have a sway in the region? Because he was telling Martha Karua, Jeremiah Kioni, to invite him to this meeting. Of course, Martha Karua says, we're not going to send invitations. If you want to come, just come. Do you think he has a say in this region? Because you look at Moses Kuria too, who has said he's going to attend Limuru 3.
And he has been told he can't attend. Have you seen the message? Have you seen his Twitter?
He's been told he cannot attend.
No, but he has insisted he will attend. That's what I'm talking about. That you say Moses Kuria is not going to attend. You say others can attend. I'm going to attend myself. I'm not being invited. But I'm going to attend because I'm a leader from the region. And the Limuru is about the region, so I'll attend.
Without invitation?
No, I have not been invited, but I belong to a political party. I'm one of the top leaders of Democratic Party. So I'll attend because the Democratic Party has been attending.
Okay.
All right. But so that is the chaos I'm talking about, because nobody, organize this. The idea of people meeting, let's be clear about this. The idea of people meeting is not bad. But the idea of people meeting to talk high politics about the future without proper organizations and proper preparation and grassroots mobilization is, to me, the most tragic thing that can happen to a community.
Final question. What does the future hold for Mount Kenya region? If this division continues as it is President William Ruto again going to be president in 2027? Will we see the same kind of politics unfolding in 2027?
I don't know what plans UDA would have in terms of planning about its future. What I do know for the region is that the Mount Kenya people are very politically conscious, and they make decisions. They made Kenyatta one, they made Kibaki, and they supported Moi's rise to power wholeheartedly, and they supported Ruto's rise to power. They are going to support another leader's rise to power, and the story will continue. I see a happily ever after. I don't see a doomsday scenario.
All right, thank you for tuning in that conversation. Professor Peter Kagwanja says it as he sees it, has been in Mount Kenya politics. He knows everything to do with it. What does the future hold? Is Uhuru playing politics now against President William Ruto? Final word for Kenyans thinking about Limuru 3 that is happening and thinking, is it going to affect me personally?
I think Limuru 3 is a wake-up call for Mount Kenya people to start having a conversation about their future. It's simply a wake-up call. It is not going to be decisive of anything. It's not going to determine whether there will be ugali or not on my plate tonight.
Okay. Thank you for tuning into that conversation, Peter. Thank you for making time for us. Always a privilege. Till we do talk again, have yourself a lovely rest of your day.